Hello and welcome to Chicory's maintenance series. In the last video on the industrial automation aboard Chicory, we installed these components and you can look at that. But in that video I talked about that there needed to be an enclosure here that requires tools to enter to be compliant with ABYC guidelines. How I'm going to do that, I'm going to use some 1/4 inch aluminum channel and some 1/4 inch hardboard that is laminated with a black material. So I'm going to take this process, take you through it, and show you what I'm doing. So hang in. Okay, so I'm getting ready to cut the aluminum U-channel, and I just want to show you what I'm doing. So this long line here, I'm cutting 2 sections that are going to be 8 inches long, and I'm going to drill holes 2 inches on center to accept a number 6 screw. And the reason I'm doing the number 6 screw, it is the largest I can get that will fit inside the channel so I can screw it. The next thing I want to show you about is selecting the drill bit size. This drill bit, which is 5/64 or 9/64 rather, whoops. You can see some threads coming through on each side, so I'm going up to next size larger. You can see I'm fine with the head, but I've got a drill bit that's big enough. So I'm going to drill those holes first, and then I'm going to use my Dremel metal cutoff saw to cut off at the 8 inches. So I'll be back in a second. So these are cut. Time to clean up the edges with a file and then install. Getting ready to screw this first rail in, and you can see I'm just holding it with some tape. And what I'm doing is I'm aligning it with the outside edge so it's perpendicular. So I'm going to screw that one in and do it to the other side as well. Okay, I'm going to start cutting the hardboard. This actually happens, I showed you it was black on one side and white on the other. It's actually a chalkboard and whiteboard, but it was the great hardboard that was nicely coated, so that's why I chose it. Something I didn't have to finish. So I've drawn my line that I'm going to cut along, and you can see I have a fine tooth, smooth cut bit on my reciprocating saw, and you can see that it cuts on the pull up motion, and that's why I have the black on the bottom side, because as it pulls up it's less likely to chip out on the bottom side as it is on the top side. So my non-visible side is up when I'm cutting. Just a little tip. I'm going to cut this now. I'll be back in a second. 2 other tips and tricks I want to show you. I told you about the saw blade, but one of the things, a lot of saws have adjustments on them, and what this adjustment does is for faster cutting, it does more of a circular cut as opposed to just straight reciprocating. I have this set at the very just reciprocating setting because that will give you a smoother cut. If I were to cut on the one that has the round movement, it cuts much faster but not nearly as smooth. So that's something you need to be conscientious about. And then I'm going to zoom in over here for a second, and I just want to show you, let me focus. So here's the line that I drew with my pen. This is the exact thickness, you can see, of my pen ball mark, and this represents the exact measurement I want. So then I cut to the outside of the edge, so I know that from this point where I cut all the way to the edge is the perfect measurement. And so that's just another tip on how you can make sure your cuts are perfect. Draw your line exactly where you want it and cut to the outside of the line. Okay, I just want to show you the next step. You saw me starting to install these rails, and then you saw me cut this piece. So the piece has to slide in there and get around the screw heads, of course. So this is what it looks like in place. I'm working on the next piece here, and I want to show you a couple things. So I'm going to slide this into place, and I'm going to slide it back here behind this breaker because I want to show you a couple things. I have to jiggle it around a little bit, and because it's dark, I'm going to turn on this light. So one of the things that you can see is I have it cut on each side so it's fitting really nice and tightly against the piece, the outside wall. One of the things that I do is I cut it way oversized. I think you can probably see way down there. And that's because I need to trim the top. This side over here is a 1/2 inch thick. This side over here is a 3/4 inch thick. I have to make it around this wire. And I want this top piece to come up even with this, because I'm going to have a piece of angle aluminum that goes over to lock these two pieces together. So right now I'm going to use a straight edge. It happens to be an angle finder, but I don't need an angle finder here. And I'm going to sketch out on the inside of the white that's hidden all of the things that I need to do to make this configuration fit, so I can slide it in there and attach it, and it fits every area perfectly. So I'm going to work on that now. So I'm back, and I wanted to show you a couple things. Much of the time that I've been doing cabinet work on chicory, I have found that it's true of all boats that there are no plumb, no right angles. Everything is kind of skewed a little bit. And that's true of this one too. This is a teeny bit of a rhombus. And so when I cut these two edges parallel to each other, I made my measurements and I pull it up. There was a 5/16 of an inch difference between the right and the left side, in excess of the difference in thickness. And so I'm going to pop this out and show you the difference. So you can see on the line here, this is how far out of square this is. So the right thing to do, of course, is make the piece oversized, know that it's going to be out of square, move everything up so you have a final cut that you can make that will make everything fit together. So I'm going to make this cut, and then we'll dry fit it in a second. Okay, I've done that trim. I'm happy with the results. I still have great clearance for my breaker. And now I just need to put the aluminum L bracket on the front here, and I'll be back in a minute and show you what I'm doing with that. So I'm ready to cut the last piece of L angle, and I'll be doing that in 1 second. I cut it off, cleaned it off with a machinist file, and now I'm going down to dry fit it. So I dry fitted the angle, but now that I'm dry fitting it, I'm thinking about changing what I've done, and I've got enough material to mess around with it. So if I'm going to lock this in where I have to have tools to remove it, I pretty much have to screw down through the aluminum to the aluminum rails here, which those screws are going to be proud. I like this flat appearance here, and I was thinking if I were to cut a piece of aluminum that was longer, cut one edge flush here, but bend out other legs here, I could put a screw in here and a screw in here. It would lock this in, but I'd have this nice clean look. So I'm going to try that, and I'll be back in a minute. So this is the new idea. So this area between this cut line and this cut line is going to be the top surface. This area will be the horizontal surface. This will be a bend line, and this will be a bend line, and this will be how I'll secure it. The X areas will be removed, and this is just the initial cutoff line. So I'm going to make those cuts, and I'll be back in 1 second. So here's my rough cuts before cleaning it up with the machinist file. I'm going to go to work with it now on the file, and then I'll show you when I'm done. Okay, I've cleaned this up with a file, and I'm going to show you a little bit of improvisation. So I've got two leftover pieces of the aluminum angle here, and I'm putting them between within the space of the picnic table, and then I'm going to slide this down between the two of them. Okay, there we go. I'm going to use this as a bending jig to bend this out. So here we go. I'm going to have to beat that a little bit, but that's a good start to the bend. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Oops, sorry about that. And then I'm going to bend this one. Now I'm just going to shape those a little bit and we'll be ready to go test fit it. So just get the corners the way I wanted. I just used the same device again, used a little carpenter's hammer and just persuaded a little bit to make sure I got a crisp corner with exactly the contours I wanted. So now we're going to go test fit it. So I bent these pieces in and I like this look much better. So I'm going to drill a hole here, I'm going to drill a hole here. These will be screwed in. Obviously you won't be able to move this piece, you won't be able to move this piece. So everything's locked in. I like the looks of it. I don't think you need to see me drill 2 holes and put 2 screws in. With that, I'm going to be done with the video. I appreciate you hanging in here. I appreciate you viewing, commenting, liking, and subscribing. Thanks a lot.